Thank you for joining us today to hear more about the NextCycle Michigan I2P3 and RSC Innovation Challenges. A few housekeeping items to go through. First, all attendees are muted. We can't hear you, but we want to hear from you. So send us your questions via the Q&A button on your Zoom navigation bar. The panel and I will see those questions pop up and we'll try to answer as many as possible during the roundtable portion. Note that this is different than the chat box. In the chat box, we're going to share some links so that you have easy reference. However, please use the Q&A button to submit any questions to our panel. And yes, we are recording today's session. We will post the recording on YouTube and share the link with everyone that is registered. So let's take a look at today's agenda. And we see that we can check off number one. We're off to a smashing start. We will hear from the Michigan Department of Environment, Great Lakes and Energy, also known as EGLE, to provide an introduction of NextCycle Michigan. Then we'll roll into overviews of the two innovation challenges you're here to learn about today, the I2P3, which is Intergovernmental Initiatives and Public-Private Partnerships, and RSC, which stands for Recycling Supply Chains. Then we're going to invite all of our panelists to turn on their cameras and we'll gather on screen for a roundtable question section. And finally, I'll wrap up our time today. So let's get started. First up is Matt Flechter. Matt is a recycling market development specialist with EGLE. For over 20 years, he has assisted recycling programs by growing the Michigan supply chain so the valuable commodities that businesses need make their way from curb to new products. Matt, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks, Melissa, and thanks you all for being here. This is the last of the 6 tracks, and I'm so excited for these two, the recycling supply chain and the public-private partnerships and intergovernmental initiatives. Lots of acronyms in these ones, but they are so important because they talk about the importance of this system that we all operate in. So NextCycle is primarily designed to support the development of projects from idea phase to implementation, but operating in an environment that is supportive, that shares it across the value chain, not only knowledge and technical resources, but also partnerships and funding. And so these two tracks are really important for you to see the place that you operate in that supply chain. So you might be thinking, hey, I'm just collecting material at my community, or I'm just looking to get more plastic resin into the end product. But without that complete supply chain, from collection to processing, to sometimes reprocessing to end use, the whole system breaks down. If we don't have quality material in the quantities that the end use markets need, then they're not going to get anywhere. If you don't have end markets to send your materials to, then you're not going to get anywhere. So connecting those pieces together is an important part of what these two tracks are. And I'm really glad you're here today.
Awesome. Thank you, Matt. I appreciate you giving us that quick introduction. Next up, we have another Matt, Matt Nod. Matt is an associate senior consultant with RRS. He has over 30 years of public sector sustainability, climate adaptation, and emergency management consulting experience. He is also one of the track leads for the I2P3 Innovation Challenge. Fun fact about Matt, he was the first environmental coordinator for the city of Ann Arbor. All righty, Matt, it's all yours.
Thanks so much for having me, and thanks so much for joining us here today. I'm going to hopefully take about 10 minutes to quickly review some of the key parts of the I2P3 track. And I also hope you saw my 2 other associates that are going to help with this track, and I just want to give them credit. I lost the straw, and so I'm giving the talk today, but Kira Higgins and Karen O'Brien will be key leads in this track. So next slide. The I2P3 challenge track is all about helping local governments. And I think you heard it from the other Matt that it's all about being supportive. And the next slide, the challenge statement for this track is accelerating recycling and composting work in your communities with new public and private partnerships. And I think the key words are accelerator and partnerships. Lots of accelerator tracks out there for new businesses, startups, and things like that. And I give the state a lot of credit for thinking about how do we create an accelerator track for local governments. And, you know, as Matt also said, move these good ideas that are appropriate for your community and move them into an implementation phase. So you can do a lot of this on your own, but you'll often be better off partnering with either neighboring communities to get the scale you need for the funding to make sense, or make your project more attractive to private sector partners to bid on. Next slide. So just a reminder, we bury a lot of material in Michigan that could be recycled. So of the 8.8 million tons that we landfill every year, about 84% could be recoverable and put to a higher and better use. And so this is all about helping communities in all of these spaces. So note that organics is a key part of this. Mixed recyclables, other recyclables. NextCycle is a really big tent. So if you have any questions about whether your idea fits in NextCycle, feel free to set up some time with us during one of our office hours. Next slide. So a couple pictures about envisioning success and just giving you a sense, we're hoping to see local governments proposing projects that need help with contracting, reuse and repair shops, food scraps, improved access or efficiency, drop-off centers, and solutions for commercial districts. Next slide. We're also hoping to see local governments proposing projects that help the communities be more resilient, to build regional authorities, other cooperative arrangements, solve for multifamily and commercial recycling challenges, engage with the arts and education and industry and schools. I think there's a lot of different partnerships that we're excited to see come our way from Michigan communities. Is there a way to build community education into your project? Next slide. So we are looking forward to seeing projects that are either scaling some of the really great best practices we already have in Michigan, or innovate with the new best practices we need to triple Michigan's recycling rate. Next slide. So again, with scaling best practices, we're hoping to see teams that come forward and say, we're looking for help building a new regional authority so we can kind of work collectively and cooperatively for an extended sustainable period of time. We know we're going to need new material recovery facilities if we're going to process all this new material to hit a 45% recycling rate in Michigan. We're going to need hub and spoke opportunities. How do we create these collection points in rural Michigan that can capture material and then get it to some of these new MRFs? New drop-off infrastructure. And then just, again, there's lots more access to recycling at the curb and carts to help build these collection programs. Next slide. And innovation. We think there's an opportunity for communities to come together and say 2 or 3 of us want to work together on a new policy for capturing food scraps in the community, or sustainable purchasing policies that increase the demand from governments for recycled content. As I mentioned before, we're going to need solutions for organics, compost facilities, and food waste. And we talked about resilience and repair. And again, we talked about folks being creative. And is there a way to build art and education into these projects? Next slide. So I2P3, the challenge track, is likely to be competitive. And we want to give you a sense for what you would get through the I2P3 experience if you're accepted. We have a challenge track innovation panel, a group of experts that are going to help decide which teams are accepted. And we're hoping for some opportunities for teams that aren't selected to be able to audit portions of the I2P3 challenge track so they're ready for future opportunities. So if your team is accepted, what can you expect? Just like a startup accelerator, we want your local government project to have a strong business case, funding and financing strategy, and strategy to build the case in your community. You will receive technical assistance to help you fine-tune your project, connect you with peers who have gone through this or are working on something similar, line up potential private partners, and it may be at the end that you're lining up your project and getting ready to develop the RFP that'll bring on that private partner with you, help build capacity on your team. So for a lot of these local government projects in this track, it's unlikely your project will be finished by September of 22. But we hope that you will have a much stronger business funding and communication strategy, and you will have new access to EAGLE grant funds allocated to NextCycle Michigan teams. Next slide. So here's our schedule. Applications are going to open up in the middle of October, and they're going to close in early January. Our challenge track innovation panel, our panel of experts in the I2P3 track, will help decide which teams are accepted. And then starting in February and probably culminating in a showcase in September at an MRC event, we're hoping, there'll be a showcase where we'll highlight all the work that's gone on with our teams through this process. Next slide. So eligibility, and just to be clear, the I2P3 track is all about the public sector. So we expect that a Michigan municipality, a city, township, county, are going to be the lead on the project. And again, in the spirit of partnerships, we're hoping you have at least one on board. It's fine if you got one in the wings and you're working on it, but we're ideally looking for multiple communities to be working together to kind of make this project work. But assume, again, I said, assume NextCycle is a big tent and talk to us in office hours if you have any questions about your idea or what kind of team and partnerships are going to work for you. Next slide. So the key part is building your team. What's your idea? Who do you have internally in your community to help? And who are neighboring communities, DDA, NGOs? Sorry about that. City partnerships, 3 townships working together, townships in a county, 3 rural counties. Next slide. So how can you use NextCycle Michigan to help build the community partnerships to support more resilient recycling in your communities? Next slide. And how can NextCycle Michigan help bring circular economy benefits, economic benefits to your community, equity benefits, environmental and climate benefits to your community, and how can we support that with you? And next slide. So again, thank you. And again, credit to Kira and Karen O'Brien for their help in kind of developing this. And we're all going to be available for office hours to answer your questions and answer your questions on the panel today. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. And that's a really good reminder for everyone to please submit your questions to us. If you look at your nav bar for Zoom, you'll see that there's one that's called Q&A. It has a little double thought bubble. Feel free to submit your questions, and then we'll see them start to pop up on our panel over here, and we can get to those in just after our next speaker. Let me introduce him, Bryce Hesterman. He's going to walk us through the RSC Innovation Challenge. He's a consultant with RS with over 16 years of experience. And as you saw, one of the leads of the RSC track. Bryce has been a core member of RS's market evaluation and infrastructure analysis team. He plays a key role in projects that involve analyzing generation, recovery, and existing infrastructure. Thanks for being here today, Bryce.
Yeah, thanks, Melissa. I appreciate that. And thanks, Matt and Matt, for your sections. And just to add to that, I'm actually not working alone. So like Matt Nod, I have a team behind me, and I don't have their pictures here, but Karen O'Brien is helping out with this one as well, and Kelly Domino. So those are the three leads on this track. So like she said, I'm here to talk about the basics of the recycling supply chain, or as we say, the RSC Innovation Challenge. And so while the I2P3 track focuses on public sector leads, this track is aimed more at private sector project leads. And so those of you, I'm sure know, but just to cover the bases, recycling supply chains are the pathways that take materials at the end of their intended life and repurpose them into inputs for new products. This is a key material flow that enables a circular economy to function. And it represents a shift from a linear take, make, waste model to a model that keeps materials in use by diverting them away from the disposal stream and into the manufacturing stream, right? So the RSC Innovation Challenge is one of 6 challenge tracks within the NextCycle program. And this particular one is aimed at stimulating the development of a regional circular economy by catalyzing recovery, utilization, and infrastructure development along the supply chain, again, with a particular lens on private sector stakeholders. So you see here the challenge statement. And currently Michigan is somewhat of a low performer when it comes to landfill diversion. The most recent research indicates that about 18% of waste generated in Michigan is diverted from landfill or incineration. And you saw that pie chart that Matt showed earlier, 84% potentially recoverable, 46%, so nearly half of what is there is inorganic materials that can be recycled. And so that's really the focus here. So we have a different track that's focused on organics. We're focusing on those inorganic, all those other potentially recyclable materials. And so, as we're aware, this program, NextCycle Michigan, was developed as a tool to help the state meet its 45% diversion rate goal. And this track was designed to address those infrastructure gaps in the system around really up and down the system: collection, processing, and market utilization or manufacturing using recycled content. I also want to mention that this program is aligned with climate and equity goals. So, using recycled content has a strong decarbonization potential by reducing the embodied carbon emissions in manufactured products. And so that's really the value proposition here. And then also, this project does seek to provide equitable opportunities across a diverse range of geography, organizational ownership types, and communities. So as Matt Nod mentioned, this is really a circular economy accelerator program. And it takes this model that was developed for other, maybe more of a tech-based industry and applies it to the recycling system, which we think can really benefit greatly from an injection of innovation and collaboration. And so participating in the RSC Challenge track will help to advance your project concept into an investable shovel-ready project. And we achieve this by providing mentorship, technical assistance, networking, access to funding opportunities, and public recognition. And so first of all, the RSC track provides this growth opportunity for successful applicants. And so we want to expand teams' ideas of what they're capable of while also refining their plan into a successful pitch. The RSC Challenge will help successful applicants incorporate innovation and best practices into their business plans while grounding those plans into the context of the Michigan landscape. And through one-on-one support and mentorship with industry experts alongside workshops and co-learning experience, including an intensive boot camp, that's kind of how we're going to provide that growth. And so a lot of different ways that we're going to work together, co-learning and helping through expert mentorship. In addition, successful RSC applicants are really brought into this expansive NextCycle Michigan network. I mean, I see 67 people on this call. We've already had over 90 applicants in other tracks. And so there's a lot of parties involved in this network. not to mention the partners and sponsors as well. And so there's this really robust network that you are entering into by participating in this challenge track. And you know, those are those working within the state's recycling supply chain. So it's a wealth of knowledge to help you build your project. Teams will have a lot of opportunities to connect with these experts and also investors in the industry. And you know, track mentors will actively work with the teams to foster and develop those relationships, and connecting them with this broader ecosystem that includes, for these purposes, feedstock suppliers, equipment providers, customers, investors, and other strategic partners. Access to funding, of course, is a key benefit. My high school economics teacher's first day lesson that sticks with me to this day: Tim Stoffel, there is no such thing as free lunch. It takes capital resources to advance any new venture, and NextCycle programming is designed to help overcome the barrier of capital. This includes helping to identify the right funding pathway for each team, followed by facilitation and introduction to potential funders. Opportunities may range from grants to low or no interest loans, impact investment, or even traditional or conventional investment pathways. And in addition, there's a dedicated award pool for the team or teams that show the most promise at the end of the cohort, as showcased through the RSC showcase pitch competition. And there's also a dedicated pool of Eagle Grant funding for those that are participating in the RSC track. Last but not least, I do want to mention the opportunity for recognition and publicity. We have a dedicated communications and marketing team, those that pulled this webinar together, and participants will be promoted through press releases, social media, mass emails, conferences, webinars, published articles, you name it. You're going to get your name out there. So this is a great chance for exposure to potential investors and partners. So here is a glimpse at the timeline, and really what I want to focus on here is that application open October 15th to January 7th. You know, it's okay if you don't have your idea totally baked right now. You still have 3 months before the application closes. And so we are here to work with you to put you in a position to develop a competitive application. So don't be shy. You know, if you think you have some ideas, reach out to us and let's try to get an application in by January 7th. In terms of who can apply, we're looking for, you know, businesses, entrepreneurs, universities, nonprofits with investable ideas that have the potential to improve recycling supply chains. This can be a single entity, or we talk about teams a lot. It could be a collaboration. I mean, your team could just be the leadership of your company, or it could be a cross-sector partnership that includes multiple organizations. We certainly encourage that. So let's talk a little bit more about eligibility. So first of all, applicants must be able to demonstrate that they'll positively and directly impact diversion of Michigan-based materials. So this is a Michigan-centered project, materials that would otherwise be disposed of. And so any material focus other than organics is considered eligible here. We are looking for technologies, infrastructure, processes, and models that have been technically proven. And so there's a different track that's focused on novel technologies. This is trying to take things that are a little bit lower risk, that are proven to be feasible, and potentially helping to scale them up or bring them from outside of Michigan into Michigan. Existing Michigan-based businesses and organizations are encouraged to participate, but also those from out of state with the potential to move into Michigan or affect Michigan are encouraged to apply as well. And as noted, this track has a particular focus on kind of private, either for-profit or nonprofit, collectors, processors, or end markets. And again, we're really centering on the infrastructure gaps in the system. And so your solution should come with some element of infrastructure component. So again, I don't want to beat a dead horse, but I just want to make sure that this is really clear, that we are, focused on these gaps along the supply chain. And our ideal candidates will come with an already great solution that may have a couple of identifiable hurdles that they need to bring over the finish line to raise the necessary capital and put into a position to execute. And so this does mean that projects should be nearing an implementation ready phase, but it's not quite there yet. And they kind of need this support to get them over the hump. So this could include early stage companies, for example, taking a successful pilot and scaling that into a commercial scale. It could be an existing company that's been around for a long time that's looking to expand a site or develop a new site because there's so much demand for a new product that might incorporate recycled content. It could be a company from out of state looking to bring their model in state and could use some help kind of understanding the landscape and tapping into the network within Michigan. And it could be an existing company looking to expand vertically along the supply chain or horizontally into new services or products. So, the stage of the company, there's many different opportunities there. Some examples I'll kind of throw out there are, it could be establishing a hub and spoke collection and aggregation system, which, that could focus on one type of material such as ag film, or it could be a broad range of materials through one or several drop-off centers that take a range of materials. It could be working to develop a material recovery facility, a MRF, or even a secondary sorting facility in a part of the state that lacks sorting capacity. It could be siting a demanufacturing plant for e-waste, electronic vehicle batteries, wind turbines, or solar panels, kind of aligning with the climate technologies. It could be upgrading a manufacturing operation in order to allow it to incorporate more post-consumer recycled content into an existing product. I also want to note that prevention and reuse projects are also very welcome. We're not just limited to recycling. So example there could be a bottle wash plant developed by some of the craft beverage manufacturers that washes and reuses bottles instead of using new bottles every time. There could be expanding a textile reuse and repair operation that could fit into that as well. So, the possibilities are endless. I'm not going to try to be exhaustive here, but the one takeaway I want to mention on this slide is if you think you have a good idea, but you're not sure if it fits in, reach out to us and we can help you figure out if it's the right fit. It could be that you're ready and you want to go straight for an infrastructure grant from Eagle. That might be fine, but reach out to us and we can help you to kind of chart the path forward. Next slide. So let's just talk about action items here, right? So applications open October 15th. You see the link right there, so jot that link down and set a reminder for yourself on October 15th. Log on to the website. There's going to be a big button there that says apply. Click that. You'll get a download an application packet. It's going to have all the information that you need, including all the questions to prepare for, the criteria for how you're going to be judged for the selection, and a lot of information there. So that's a really good place to start. And just note here that it's due January 7th. So you do have some time there, but you don't want to let too much time pass. Next slide. And last but not least, I do want to note here some resources that we have. So when prepping for your application, a really useful tool that I really encourage everyone to utilize is office hours. So I'm going to be hosting office hours, and you're going to find a link to that on the application packet and through the website. And please don't hesitate setting up an appointment. If you need multiple appointments, that's fine as well. Also, when in doubt, you can email that nextcyclemi@recycle.com, and that'll get some questions answered. I also just want to mention that NextCycle Michigan website, it has a resource library with reports, including the gap analysis, which can help kind of frame those gaps and impacts. And it has great data on material recovery and recycling in Michigan. It's also got a collection of stories that exemplify the types of projects that we're targeting. And there's also some data visualization, so maps with data that you can play around with that can really help you identify, really what the value proposition is for your project and make a stronger application. And so that's it for the RSC track. I'll pass it back now to Melissa, and I think we're gonna, take some questions and have a discussion here.
Thank you, Bryce. That was a great overview of the RSC track. I will invite all of our panelists to turn on their cameras. We're going to stop sharing our slide deck so you just see all of our beautiful faces. Please feel free to continue to submit questions via the Q&A button. That's the one with the double thought bubble there. You may notice a new face amongst us. That is Karen OBrien. Karen is the Executive Director of the Michigan Recycling Coalition. You probably heard a few of us mention MRC. That's what that stands for. She has worked with the MRC in a variety of capacities since 1993. Don't say that. But that just means she knows what she's talking about. And for those of you who don't know what the MRC is or what they do, they're a nonprofit association advocating for waste reduction, recycling, and composting within the state. So Karen, first, welcome. Thank you for joining our panel.
Of course, happy to be here. Thank you.
And I'm actually going to throw the first question to you.
Okay.
So you are the executive director of MRC. You're also one of the track leads for NextCycle Michigan. So you're talking with cities and counties and government officials, businesses and legislatures on a daily basis. So how do you see NextCycle impacting Michigan's circular economy?
I think it will have a lot of impact, and is already having a lot of impact on the circular economy in Michigan. I think these two tracks in particular are going to have a really impactful way forward for everybody. I2P3 specifically is for local governments, and local governments play a key role in assuring that these services are provided. If governments aren't really doing that, it's difficult for the private sector to pull materials out of households and businesses on their own. And so local governments, if those private sector services aren't available, local governments often have to step up to providing those services. So I2P3 is really aimed at making sure that local governments can step up to providing those services. And if it's not doing it on its own, then it's about helping them find the right partnerships to make that possible. RSC, on the other side of that, is about helping private sector operators provide services that are really needed and necessary to make those connections between the local programs and what we're turning that material into. So without these connections, circular economy doesn't happen. So NextCycle and the whole vision about accelerating these ideas into shovel-ready projects is really where it's at and how we're going to make progress here.
Wonderful, thank you, Karen. And I think you started that there, clarified some of the differences between the two tracks, because I think as some of our audience is looking, saying, okay, I'm hearing everybody, we're trying to improve recycling in Michigan. We have multiple tracks going here. Bryce and Matt Nod, I want to give you the opportunity, is the main difference, one is more public centric and the other one's more private centric? Can you just clarify that a little bit more for our audience?
Sure, I'll go first. I think the short answer is yes. We're creating a space in I2P3 that's really about local governments. And we want to hear solutions that communities want, and those staff that are listening, that are running those programs, hearing from the community that we need better services. We need better services at lower cost. And is there an opportunity to kind of, instead of just bidding it out as a small community, find 3 other partners that all of a sudden, and we have really good examples of this, that you can get better services at lower cost by kind of creating the right scale for your project. I'll turn that back to Bryce on RSC.
Yeah, thanks, Matt. And I guess just to add to that, and what Karen was mentioning, local governments are really key for getting stuff out of the household and residents. But there's a whole commercial sector where a lot of material is generated, and so I think there's a opportunity to support those public sector programs, being that private sector partner, but also working with businesses and commercial entities to help them with their materials and to collect and process and manufacture using that. The other thing I want to mention is that there is a little bit of, there's some gray area built in here, and so I mentioned that it's targeted towards private sector, RSC is targeted towards private sector leads. That's not to say that a public sector partner couldn't be on the project. Like, we do want to see that kind of collaboration, and we do anticipate that some of these teams that are in RSC, these private sector teams, could potentially be these partners in the public-private partnership. So for I2P3. So we do want to see this interaction between the tracks as well. The distinction is really who's leading the effort. And from my perspective, if it's a public sector lead, that's I2P3. If it's a private sector lead, that's RSC.
Wonderful. And I will reiterate that if you still have a question as to which track you feel you fall into, that's when you give us that email to nextcyclemi@recycle.com or go on the website. Bryce was very keen in showing you that you can sign up and it's called either one-on-ones or office hours. And basically you just click that link, a calendar is going to pop up, you select the date and time that works best for you. And then you're going to have a one-on-one conversation with one of the NextCycle reps. You really can hash out where do you fit. Question that came in from the audience, does NextCycle have a list of mentors looking to help small businesses gain access and knowledge in the recycling industry? We did mention that we have a resources page that has a wealth of information about the industry, about Michigan. Anyone else want to add to that list of available resources?
You know, I would maybe say again, reach out to us, because I think a lot of times like that email, the NextCycle Michigan email, that's a place where we can triage your questions. And, you know, behind that, there is a long list of potential mentors, and, you know, we can help you figure out who would be the best person to talk to.
Yeah, I want to add to that, Melissa. I think that question highlights that everybody's at a different stage. Everybody has different needs. And what NextCycle is doing is it's helping you to figure out, are you at that shovel ready position, or are you at that, where do I find a hauler position, or how do I get contracting, or what is a MRF? Like, what is, like, you know, you might be at a different stage. So having this network here to support you and feel able to ask those questions, we can help you with that and get you at that right point. So don't hesitate. If you don't know what a MRF is, or if you don't know how to, you know, what you would do for contracting, or how you even connect with the existing infrastructure that might be in your backyard, that's what we're doing here. So we'll connect you with those right people.
Melissa, can I add to that as well?
Please do, please do.
Okay, this may be a good time to talk about the MRC upcoming conference, October 28th and 29th. You know, the MRC has been around for almost 40 years now, and we've got a really good network of professionals that are doing, you know, this work in Michigan. A lot of these professionals have been involved in our network, are a part of the growing NextCycle network, and NextCycle is helping us to expand that network. So just, you know, being involved and kind of throwing your name in the hat for this work helps us understand what role you can play: transportation, logistics, processing, manufacturing, whatever it is. We want to know about you. Coming to the conference on October 28th and 29th in Bay City will give you access to all of these people in person, likely, or at least many NextCycle team members in person, so you can have one-on-one conversations right there to help you make quick decisions and figure out what belongs, but also hook up with other people that you might be interested in partnering with for your projects. So that's a great place to get involved and learn more while you're doing it.
And for those of you who visit the NextCycle Michigan website, if you go to our calendar, the MRC event is listed there, and there's a link that does take you directly to their site as well. I do want to throw it back to Bryce and Matt Nod. And this is a question we get almost every webinar we do, lots of emails on this. What makes a good application? You know, we have all these folks out here, they're thinking about their ideas and their projects, and, you know, they're about to walk into this application period that opens on October 15th. What should they expect? What are you looking for a good application that's going to catch the eye of those reviewing?
I think I'm going to let Bryce go first, since he's already accepted a few applicants and teams, or at least been part of that.
Yeah, so I have a little experience. I managed the flows track, the food, liquids, organic waste systems track, and so went through this whole process. And what I would say is that the application packet has lots of really good information. And one thing that's included is the criteria for selection on the, I think it's the very last page. And so, we set up the questions to match the criteria, and the applications that were less successful, I'll start with that, they might have missed one or two of the criteria. In particular, there are 3 different impact metrics. We're looking for triple bottom line solutions here. So economic, environmental, and social, or equity. And those applications that demonstrated that their project would successfully impact those 3 areas were those that kind of rose to the top. It's great to have, the economic is really important. We want to see that these are sustainable business models. We want to see things where the revenues outpace the cost, but that's not all that we're looking to see. We're also looking to see that it has a positive environmental impact and a positive impact on the community. And so being able to articulate all of those points and really referencing that criteria is the way to go about that.
The only thing I'll add to that is, I think as we've talked about the local government teams, we fully expect there's a lot of communities with means, and they're going to be ready to go. They've got staff and good ideas to move their kind of good programs into better programs. But, we're looking for the willing, we're looking for communities that maybe haven't been able to step up before, think they're ready, and could really use that kind of free technical assistance, good consulting. Who are the other peer communities that are already in this space that they can learn from, and really take their program forward. So we really want anyone who's interested reach out to us, because as Bryce said, the other thing we can help with some of these office hours is help you think through what those benefits are, because we've already talked to other communities about them, and that may help with a better application.
I'd also say that a good application hits a sweet spot of where the track can support you. And if you're a little too early phase, then we have options for you. That's the micros grant. So being able to access some funds, to get some data, to do some analysis, to get that early stage process, so that you can come back in the next time these tracks are available. So if you're a little too early, or if you're too late, you're already ready, there's not that support, you just need cash, and we can connect you with funding as well. So hitting that sweet spot but we can't do that, what Matt just said, we can't do that unless we know that you applied and we can get you into the right place.
That is great.
If I could just add to that, yeah, I mean, that's a really good point, Matt. And it is kind of track specific, but for RSC, as I mentioned, it's kind of closer towards implementation ready. So, if we're seeing applications that are kind of focused on like more feasibility, like we're trying to see if this might be a good idea, that's probably not a good application for RSC. That might be better for micros or something like that. We are looking for things that are a little bit more ripe than that. And also, I just want to mention, like, articulating the relevant experience that you have and the passion that you have. That's what we want to see. We're looking at individuals, and this is like looking at investing in people, and we want to see those that have some relevant experience, even if it's tangential, and really showing the passion that you have for that.
Awesome. And we are at our time for today. So I have a couple of slides left that I want to share screen again, just to remind you some key points here. Applications open October 5th for both of these tracks, RSC and I2P3. It will be on the NextCycle Michigan site. That's nextcyclemichigan.com. Here you see you have /apply. That takes you directly to that page, but you can get to that page by just going to nextcyclemichigan.com. The apply button's right at the top in bright green. You can't miss it. Application deadlines are in January, so plenty of time to really review the packet, see what it is that you need, talk to potential partners, and get things in order. Also plenty of time for, next slide, contacting us. So you heard several times where we're encouraging you, reach out. If you're not sure if your idea is quite in that sweet spot, don't hesitate to reach out and ask us. This might be something where you heard us mention a couple of other different tracks. NextCycle Michigan has 6 tracks, that innovation challenges that are possible. And so it might be a better fit somewhere else. We can help you figure that out. but you have to contact us. I don't want anybody to think that they can't reach out with a question. You absolutely can. You can email at NextCycle MI, the MI stand for Michigan, at nextcyclemi@recycle.com, or go on to the website, nextcyclemichigan.com. You'll see on the application area, there's places where you can click a link to schedule a one-on-one or office hours. There's also on the track pages, if you expand the next steps section, you'll also see a link there to schedule those one-on-one or office hours. That is key to helping you make that decision, get clarification in your head about your specific situation. We've had a number of questions that were very specific to certain situations, materials, places in development. Those are the questions you need to put through on that 101 or the email. But I want to thank everybody, our panelists, our audience, for joining us today. We need your participation, your ideas, your projects. That's what's truly going to make an impact on Michigan's recycling rate and creating a true circular economy. I hope you found this session helpful. Please reach out for more information. Get that application started October 15th. And with that, I wish everyone a great rest of their day. Take care.